Hey everybody, this is Daniel Harms of the RGR Football Channel, film analyst, and what we're going over today, it's not exactly film, but it's really a look back at really where the Chiefs were this year, this time last year, during their offensive line overhaul. Like what was going on? How did they get to the point where they are now, where the offensive line is going to be a huge focal point of sustaining their success over the course of the next 4 to 5 years? How they can adapt to some of the changing tides because of what they did, how they are able to get out, unfortunately for some bigger contracts for guys that were injured, and how they got to the point, like I said, they are today with a young, for the most part, offensive line that has room to grow and that Patrick Mahomes has actually figured out. So let's all flash back very quickly to last year, 2021, this time, end of February, early March, where right before or right into free agency, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of questions of what was going to happen. Mitchell Schwartz was not coming back. They released Eric Fisher. There was a lot of movement on the offensive line. We didn't know who was going to be right tackle, who was going to be left tackle, who was going to be center. They didn't bring Austin Ryder back. They had a ton of flux on the offensive line. Then they finally moved some pieces. We assumed that guys like Nick Allegretti were going to be playing key roles going forward. Obviously, until things get nailed down, you don't really know what's going to happen. Instead, the Chiefs bring Joe Thuney in, who's going to cement his left tackle, his left guard's role through the next 4 years at least. They bring in Kyle Long, who everyone thought was going to be the starting right guard. They re-signed Mike Remmers to be their right tackle. Still have Lucas Niang on the staff at this time, but going into the draft, there were questions. We didn't really know what was going to happen. They still hadn't nailed down left tackle during free agency at this point in time. We thought maybe Martinez Rankin's going to get a shot. Prince Teo Winogo. Who knows? These guys are, well, one of them's not on the roster anymore. And I think Winogo is going to be more of a futures kind of guy. He may never work out because of his medicals, and we're not really sure his development process because he's not been able to really play. So it's hard to see that kind of thing. Left tackle was a question. Left guard, obviously, you still had Thuney there, excuse me. There was Andrew Wiley also in the mix. Allegretti, who I think has cemented himself as the backup left guard. I think he played excellent in the game against Cincinnati when Orlando Brown went down and they had to slide Thuney out to left tackle, and I think that Allegretti did a great job. And so I think he has cemented himself as the backup left guard now. But center, we thought Allegretti was going to be the guy. You also had Darrell Williams on the staff as a possible option, and no real starter before they brought in a couple different guys. And then the draft comes around, okay? Then the Chiefs draft Creed Humphrey. Just incredible what they were able to do. And at right guard, we had some ideas about maybe Kyle Long, maybe LDT, and maybe Durant if that ends up being the case. None of those guys ended up sticking in terms of playing. LDT was traded. He didn't play. Kyle Long got hurt. Lots of question marks. And again, at right tackle, you had, we assumed was probably outside of Thuney, the position that everybody knew was going to be either Lucas Niang or Mike Remmers. They were going to have their position battle in training camp to figure out who was going to be the guy going forward. Fast forward to this past season. What the Chiefs did in drafting two young, I'm not going to get ahead of myself with Trey Smith. I think he has the potential to be, but we'll say two Pro Bowl caliber players in their rookie season. Okay. We know that not only was Creed Humphrey the best center in football, he was honestly, the best rookie. Pretty much, in my opinion, he was the best offensive rookie, period, and didn't garner enough votes, but he was the best center in football, period. And when you can combine that with some veteran next to him in Joe Thuney and Orlando Brown on his left side, you can have a little bit of offset on the right with some inexperience. With both, Andrew Wiley and Lucas Niang playing right tackle, you had Trey Smith in there all season long, getting that chemistry down. We saw near the end of the season where Andrew Wiley supplanted himself as the right tackle because Niang was hurt and we didn't know what was going to happen with him going forward that season. Wiley came in, played solidly enough to earn himself that starting spot. Next to the two rookies. That's an impressive feat because that left from center out to right tackle. There was a lot of question marks, a lot of youngness, a lot of inexperience at these positions, and it all seemed to work out to the point where the chemistry came in. Now, Patrick Mahomes was able, really early in the season, they had some issues, some chemistry concerns. They spent all season figuring this offensive line out. What ways best did they not only run block, but were they able to pass block? And Patrick Mahomes really figuring out their tendencies, their weaknesses, and their strengths. And at the end of the season, I think we saw perfectly what happens if he's able to not speed his own game up and just play to his strengths and play within himself and not, like I said, speed up his process and everything like that. We saw in the second half of the Bengals game, really both halves of the Bengals game, Patrick Mahomes at his best, understanding, knowing the offensive line, what they were going to do and what he could do in contrast to better himself. And in the second half, where he sped his clock up and he got uncomfortable with three-man rushes. Granted, some of those pressures and things like that he ran into, some of them were not great on a particular offensive lineman's spot. But the question mark right now is, I guess there's really two question marks, is tackle position. I assume they're going to keep Orlando Brown around. Is that going to be a tag or is it going to be a contract? If it's a tag, that tells you what really Ryan and I have been telling you all along, is that I think that he played well. I don't think he played well enough to earn the top of the market tackle pay. That's a problem at times because you want to line up that tackle position, specifically left tackle, for the future and years to come. Uncertainty at any of these tackle positions is very difficult to maneuver, especially if you don't have them signed. At least the Chiefs are going to have, I would imagine Andrew Wiley will be back next year, unless someone throws a bunch of money at him. I don't think that's going to happen. But you still have Lucas Niang and options at right tackle, who I believe is going to be the starting right tackle next year. And for 3 more years after that, you have those options. But at left tackle, if you don't have a guy like Orlando Brown, if he's not the answer going forward, your best option as of now is probably Joe Thuney, and you're sliding Nick Allegretti in at left guard. I don't dislike that offensive line, but Thuney showed you this year that not only was he an all-pro level left guard, which I said before the season I didn't think it was going to happen, and he definitely did. He showed that he could still be that. The versatility and the ability to play outside of left guard is more important when he's playing left guard. If you're playing left tackle, that means your options behind him are far worse than him having to scoot out there in an emergency, which he did and played admirably. At worst, he played admirably. So there's options. I think that Orlando Brown Jr., who's spending all that time this season getting Patrick Mahomes used to him and used to his drop sets and getting him a little bit more comfortable with some vertical 45 sets and not just attacking all the time, but also ensuring that he can do that. He can attack some of these defensive ends a little bit and get into his best comfort zone is the most important thing. And going forward, even if it's a tag, say he gets tagged this year, and then he plays pretty much the same, you're going to see an interesting dynamic next offseason when the Chiefs can't tag him twice. And he might be wanting top of the line tackle play, which I don't think he warranted this year. And if he plays again the same way next year, there's going to be a very interesting offseason dynamic, okay? It's going to be, I'm not looking forward to that situation. But I do think that now that Patrick Mahomes has, like I said, figured out his strengths, his weaknesses, he's figured out how to play behind this offensive line beautifully outside of the half against the Bengals, there are going to be options. And I think that chemistry and continuity along this offensive line, even if you end up paying Orlando Brown Jr. $17, $18 million a year to be your left tackle, it's very important for the structure and the success of this entire offense going forward. Mahomes is not going anywhere. I assume that Tyreek Hill is going to be here. You're still going to have Travis Kelce. And then if you can get those 3 guys with an offensive line for the next at least 3 to 4 years, that's what this team is built on. It's what they're going to keep building on and how they're going to keep themselves relevant in not only the AFC picture, but the Super Bowl picture. That's how you do it. And right now, offensive line is even more important. We saw how the Chiefs could run the ball, really kind of take some pressure off of Mahomes. They didn't lean into it in the AFC Championship game. They should have, Okay, we all know that. I'm assuming they know that. Will they learn from it? We'll find out this next season. But one thing that I think was very important in this whole thing is that, yes, I'm going to use PFF grades right now as a tool to explain some things, but also show you that there's some dynamics in this offense that can be exploited, okay? So if we just go to basic run blocking, okay? Basic run blocking. Where did it go? 2011. Oh, that's running. Run blocking. I hit run. Where'd they go? Run blocking. They were third in the NFL behind the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers in terms of PFF grade, okay? That doesn't mean that they were the third best team in terms of run blocking win percentage or actual run blocking, okay? There were more than a few times that they weren't the best run blocking team out there. But I will say this team got much better down the season when they almost went to a 50-50 split with their zone and their power and their gap schemes. When you're more multiple on the offensive line and you get more scheme diversity with gap, power, and zone, it makes defensive lines and linebackers hesitant to understand what's going on, and you can do so much more off of that. I'm hoping they keep that diversity into next year, especially with actually they tied for second overall, in run blocking. So they were tied with San Francisco for second overall in run blocking. There's something to build on there. Your interior three, as with two rookies on it, is already top 3 in the NFL. They're only going to get better. I think Trey Smith had some struggles this year, and I think he was responsible for more than his handful of sacks of Patrick Mahomes. But there's one thing you can't deny. The dude can move people in the run game. He is a finisher, and he wants to punish people. Now let's get a little bit deeper into some of the blocking metrics that they account for in PFF. I'm just going to look at some stats and things like that and try to do my best to explain it away. So we'll go by offensive snap counts, which should give you all the offensive linemen up top, and it does. Trey Smith was accounted for the most offensive snaps this year, which is a little interesting. But the thing for me, out of all of this continuity, is the 5 guys that played the most offensive snaps on your offensive line should be there intact going into next season. That's huge for their success going forward. And while their pass blocking was up and down, I think for the majority of the year, you saw Mahomes trying to figure them out, trying to figure out how to work behind 5 brand new offensive linemen that they didn't have last year. If you just look from last year to this year, it's a night and day difference. You have to learn new tendencies. Mahomes knew their tendencies. He knew their weaknesses. That's why they, in my opinion, got to the Super Bowl outside of a lack of talent in some areas, and in some cases, you have all those injuries to deal with as well. Not a great situation for them. Revamp everything, bring in young guys, bring in talent, and the ability to possibly be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Brett Veach should be commended for that. And unfortunately, they didn't execute it well enough in the postseason in the AFC Championship game to get back to a 3rd straight Super Bowl. That doesn't mean they can't do it this year. Going forward, we're going to see some different things. There's going to be a lot of talking about offensive coordinators with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Matt Nagy and Eric Bieniemy all in the same room now. What does this mean? Okay. If they just get out there and play football like they've been doing with this offensive line, they will be back again for a 5th straight AFC Championship game next season. Now, your best pass blocker last year was, and it wasn't really questionable in my opinion, was Joe Thuney. Okay? He was incredible with a broken hand since week 5. I believe that was the Bills game. Since week 5, been playing with a broken hand. That dude was incredible. Okay? Let's look at some of the sack numbers. Orlando Brown gave up 6 sacks this year, according to PFF. And that's really got to do with Mahomes learning his strengths and weaknesses. His weakness is clearly speed to the edge, as we saw over the course of the season. He can't really deal with that speed. But right behind him in total sacks allowed was Trey Smith. I was a little more up and down with him. I think that he definitely showed as a run blocker, had some clear and obvious weaknesses as a pass protector, but he was a rookie. Andy Heck has done a great job with this offensive line. He's only going to get better. Andrew Wiley and Lucas Niang tied, because I take it together really as the total sacks allowed at right tackle with 5, or excuse me, they had 6. So they were tied for Orlando Brown at first with 6. So you had 6, 6, and 5. Creed, they've given 3, which I'm not sure I agree with. And Joe Thuney gave up 1 and only 2 quarterback hits the whole season. That's how good that man played. That's why he got paid what he did, and that entire contract showed to be completely worth it. So this offense, as we come into conclusion for this, is going to be run through the offensive line and Patrick Mahomes. Whether they can figure out the dynamic for passing and rushing and how defenses are going to keep playing them, that's what we have to see going forward. And I'm hoping that with Matt Nagy and Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy back all under the same roof, they can figure it out together with the help of Patrick Mahomes, how to continue to take advantage of the looks you're being given on defense with this offensive line. It's imperative that they keep it together and allow them to grow. And I think that hopefully a healthy Lucas Niang gives them a higher ceiling than even they had last year. That's impressive, okay? This is the linchpin to this whole team, because as good as Patrick Mahomes is, the offensive line in front of him can make him even better and give you a run game to make him more dynamic as a quarterback and as an offensive play caller within the offensive coordinator and head coach. So I'm excited about the future of this team through the offensive line. It really is a whole linchpin in creating a dynamic and creating a dominant offense when you have an offensive line like this. I know it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but this offensive line being what it was last year out of nothing, 5 brand new starters, 2 rookies, and they were able to be near the end of the season and into the postseason one of the best overall units in all of football. Truly impressive, and I can't wait to see how they continue to grow. The one thing that I want to hear from you guys is a couple opinions, actually. What would you do with Orlando Brown Jr.? What do you think is best at right tackle? As of now, what do you think the Chiefs should do with those 2 positions? Because those are the only 2 question marks going forward, really. Your interior 3 is set for 4 years. And then you have to talk about it a little bit. But your tackle position is a little confusing. So I want to hear you guys' opinions. What would you do? What do you think is best at left tackle? What do you think is best at right tackle? And let's just talk about it in the comments section. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We're going to have more film for you tomorrow. My Jameson Williams film room for the draft part of this whole offseason is going to be dropping tomorrow. And make sure you're tuning in Thursday to Ryan and Seth for the Chief in the North. We have a ton of stuff coming out every single week here at RGR. Appreciate everybody on the team, all of the fans, all the contributors, all of the support you guys give us every single week and every single day. I love it. You guys have a great day.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.